So we talked about empirical terms. Now let's talk about some experimental variables. And that is the independent and the dependent variable. Now if you've taken, well, you've all taken an intro to psych course, so you should have already heard of these terms before, but they can be confusing, okay? And so we want to make sure you have a grasp of them, especially if you're a psych major. You're going to hear these in every single class you take, okay? So you got to get them down. So you have the independent variable and the dependent variable. And these are relative to what we would call a true experiment, not a correlation or something like that, but a true experiment where you're manipulating a variable and then you're trying to see the effect. You are creating a cause and you are going to measure the effect. Okay? So there's a timeline. First one happens, then another happens. The independent variable is the cause of the experiment. And the dependent variable is what is being measured. So it is the effect. The IV, independent variable, always comes first. And the DV, the independent variable, always comes second. Cause and effect. You can think of the dependent variable because it depends on the independent variable. A little less fluid is the notion that the notion of an independent variable means if you have controlled all other factors in the experiment, the only difference between your two conditions the difference between your two conditions should be independent of anything else, and so that only the independent variable is driving that difference. I know that one's not as smooth as dependent variable depends on the independent variable, but you got to find a way to get these down. So here's our example, okay? Here's a young man smoking some cannabis, okay? And cannabis is more and more popular in California now that it's legalized. And so more people are probably driving intoxicated on marijuana than is probably good. So the question is, does marijuana intoxication affect driving for the better or for the worse? I mean, when I was younger, I've had friends who would say all the time, I drive better when I'm stoned, which was total BS, of course, but that's what they thought. So let's do that study. Let's take 3 groups of people. Let's give some no marijuana, some a small dose of marijuana, and some a high dose of marijuana. And then let's run them through a DMV-style driving course where they got to drive around these cones in a certain amount of time, right? And their score is, if they hit a cone, they lose 5 seconds, right? So their total score would represent their skill at driving. So here, I'm hoping you can see where cause and effect comes in. The cause of their driving would be the marijuana. So the independent variable would be marijuana intoxication, or the dose of marijuana, 1 dose being 0, right? And the dependent variable, what we are measuring, is their driving ability, okay? So we've given them 3 different conditions of marijuana, and we have a clear, concrete variable we can measure, driving ability. So cause and effect. Does marijuana cause a decrease in driving ability? I hope that makes sense to you.